What's good, YouTube? Welcome back to the Brown Gent. Happy Victoria Day to all the Canadians who are watching this video. Normally, I don't do a video during the work hours, but today's a holiday, so I'm able to bring this to you live on Zomedica. And for those of you who don't remember, Zomedica is a pet healthcare company that I've been investing in for the greater part of 2 years. Now, they did have some I don't want to say incredible news, but they had some news that came out about a week and a half ago. As many of you know, I was traveling. I went to Mexico. I went to Iceland. I went to the United Kingdom. I went to Vancouver. I went to Chicago, back to back to back to back to back. That made it very hard to make videos. So I'm here right now making the video. Most of you will be watching this after the fact. For the few of you who have joined on the live stream, welcome. Post in the chat. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe to this channel. I'm trying to balance this out with a lot of the other stuff going on in my life. So the more you guys engage in my content, the more I'm incentivized and the more I want to create these videos. Now, most of you do know that I do have a Discord, and in that Discord, it's called Spades Investing, and you're able to join whenever you want. And there's many people in there who are investing in a lot of the same things, whether it's Zomedica, whether it's Tesla, maybe it's cryptocurrency like Bitcoin, maybe it's GameFi like DeFi Kingdoms. All those things are covered on the channel, but it's so much harder to come on and make a video than it is to be in the Discord. One of the other things that I've started to do is I've created a membership program, just looking for where that is. So basically, you can be a channel supporter, which is, so far we have Zellies. I launched this a few weeks ago or a week ago. You can basically be a channel supporter. You'll be called out in every video. So thank you, Zellies, for the support. Or you can be an investing prodigy. Investing prodigies get one-on-one access to me. There's a separate group that I'm going to create, as well as other benefits. Some of the benefits that you can see are on the screen right now. So if you want to support the channel, make sure you click the join membership button. It's like the price of a cup of coffee at Starbucks, and that's all it is for a month. No obligation, of course. If you want to, go for it. So Zomedica is a stock that I have been buying and holding, as well as swinging and trading. So for some of you watching, that might be a little confusing. What that means is I have a portion of Zomedica shares that I hold on to for the long term because I believe in the company. And then I have a position of swing shares that I'll buy at a certain price point. And then once it reaches a target price, I sell those shares. And then every time the shares go up and down, I'm able to sort of make those trades. And this has made it somewhat very profitable for me when Zomedica trades within somewhat of a range. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Zomedica, maybe we need a history lesson. Maybe it's the first time you're hearing about Zomedica. Zomedica pumped near the end of 2020 and the start of 2021. This had a lot to do with the bull market, tons of money that was thrown about. You saw all of these stocks just sort of hype up. Tons of people were stuck at home with cell phones. So more people were investing than ever before, and more people had access to more money than ever before. And because of that, a lot of things went euphoric. And Zomedica had a catalyst in that they were investing and they were going to launch a platform called truforma. And truforma was meant to launch sometime in March or April of 2021. So you see the stock went from a few cents, 6-7 cents here, all the way to almost $3. Sorry, I'm just going to turn off the ringer. Almost $3. And then they made an announcement that they started the launch early of truforma, and they only sold I think 1 or 2 units across, and the stock just started dumping. And it dumped all the way to where we are today. And where we are today is within a range of 19 and 20 cents all the way to 23 cents. Sorry, I'm just going to make this a little easier to see. Okay, so one of the things I've been doing is I have my swing share and my hold share set up. Every time Zomedica dips below this line, below 19 cents, I'll pick up some swing shares. That's why there's a smiley face. And every time it goes past this line, which is 23 cents, I'll sell some shares, which is why there's a happy face. The only time I'm unhappy, and maybe I'll put it on the chart. Let's see what the unhappy face is right here. I'm unhappy when it trades within the range because here I don't make any move. So for Zomedica, I haven't made any move for the last few months. And that's because there hasn't been a good opportunity. If it went higher than this, I would have sold. If it went lower than this, I would have bought. And right now, I'm sitting there standing pat. So it's probably the only way I'm not making money on Zomedica, right? Long term, I still think Zomedica will be upwards of a couple dollars a share. They've got a lot of things going on. But in the short term, I want to keep swing trading. And what you can see over here is swing trading has been very profitable, right? Zomedica hit 17 cents, went to 41 cents, 19 cents, 25 cents, 15 cents, 33 cents, 19 cents. So if you were one of those people who was swinging your Zomedica shares, you would have made a significant amount of money depending on how many shares you bought and sold. That being said, I know many people don't believe in that and they just say, hey, if I'm buying Zomedica shares, I just want to hold it for the long term because I believe, hey, that's your right. That's up to you. What I'm going to talk about in this video is really some of the most updated press releases that the team has released. Now, if you don't already have this website book, investors.zomedica.com, when you go there, you can click on the press release or the news release section and the investor alerts. When you go to investor alerts, you're actually able to put in your name and your email address, and you're subscribing so that every single time there's an update, they tell you. So you don't have to go in here every single day and check. It emails you. And then when you get the email, you go on the website and you see what's new. Going to the news releases, there are a couple new releases that I want to talk about. I'm not going to talk about the quarterly call on May 11th because that's covered on their results for the first quarter, which we will talk about. And I'll also talk about how they're going to exercise their option to acquire structured monitoring products. Okay. So the first tab over here is really what and how they did in Q1 of 2023. So I'm going to make this a little bigger. They announced, and by the way, before I get into this, remember, this is a press release. This is the company making commentary on their own performance. So they're always going to make it look better than it actually is. They're not going to make up numbers, but the way they present the information, you have to look at it a little more critically. Okay, so Zomedica announced a record first quarter 2023 financial results. Revenue was up 45% to $5.5 million. At first glance, that sounds amazing. Strong 70% gross margin and $147.5 million in liquidity. Okay, that's basically how much cash they have for their business to run. Okay, so Larry Heaton basically says we were pleased with our revenue of 5.5 million, second highest revenue quarter to date, reflecting a $1.7 million and 45% increase over first quarter 2022 sales of 3.8 million. And what they're saying is typically based on their sales cycle, the first quarter is typically the lowest revenue quarter of the year and subsequently down from our fourth quarter as expected. Now, there is some seasonality behind this because the way businesses work, they have budgets. And near the end of the year, they're a little more, or they're a little less frugal with their spend because they know how much money they have. At the start of the year, you're trying to map out how much you're going to spend for the entire year. So you don't want to overspend at the start. So can completely understand seasonality there. What I'll say here, and this is important, is diagnostic segment revenue from Truforma, Revo Squared, and VetGuardian was $0.4 million in Q1 of 2023. Obviously, like that's substantial because last year in Q1, 0.1 million. Now, they're big guns. PulseVet and Assisi, $5.1 million in Q1 of 2023, which is 38% over the first quarter of 2022. What I'll say here, and this is super important, is when you're making these comparisons, it's not right to compare quarter over quarter. I mean, it's nice because seasonality, but you're also discounting all the full year of progress and going, well, we're doing this, right? You want to make sure like you look from the previous quarter. Yes, there will be some seasonality, so you can expect a tiny decline or a smaller increase. We're looking for growth. This is a growth company. If the company's declining, that's not a good sign, right? And if they're declining, we want a good reason for it. Declining in revenue, of course, is what I mean. So I have the Q4 results from 2022 up. They made $18.9 million in revenue, which that's full year. That's not Q4. Let me look for Q4. Q4 was $6.2 million. In this case, it's 5.5. So they dropped $0.7 million. The gross margin was 70%. So the gross margin has stayed somewhat flat, and $147.5 million in liquidity. Compare that, I think it was like 150 or something when I checked. Yeah. So Zomedica had $156 million of liquidity at the end of Q4. So basically it cost him about $9 million for the year, for the quarter. That means that, let's say nothing changes and we keep that sort of momentum, this company can last about 3 more years, so 12 quarters potentially, where stuff can keep going down without needing an influx of capital or a change in sort of their structure or a change in how they operate, right? Obviously, like, that's not a fair assessment to make in a vacuum, because what you have to realize as well is there are acquisitions going on, right? Cost of operations, and they're higher when you acquire than they are when you're maintaining. And they definitely talk about that in this. But just comparing it Q1 versus Q4, I mean, Q1 was not as good as Q4. Obviously, it's better than last year, but like I said, that's the marketing. That's the marketing they're doing on how they did to make that comparison. So, if I go through the rest of this, I think the important takeaways here are our transition of TrueForma product line research and development and manufacturing is proceeding to plan, which will provide additional opportunity for margin improvement as it is completed. One of the things you should know is TrueForma was how they raised a lot of capital, right? They announced that they were going to put together TrueForma. They got tons of people excited through the meme or the bull market, pumped up. And then what they did was, it didn't really pan out, but they used that money almost like a shell company to purchase other parts or very strong companies that ended up becoming parts of Zomedica, and those parts have actually overshadowed TrueForma. Some people have actually forgotten that TrueForma is still around, and it is still one of the biggest potential segments they have, right? That pet diagnostic market. So on May 10th, we entered into an amended lease for our Georgia center to add 6,000 more square feet to our current 12,400 square feet. So like a 50% addition, earmarked primarily for TrueForma cartridge manufacturing, right? As you remember in a previous video, or if you haven't heard already, they had an agreement with Corvo to do the manufacturing of the assays themselves, which is obviously a great move. And yeah, they mentioned that here, transition from third-party manufacturing to doing it ourselves. During the first quarter, we launched the VetGuardian Zero Touch Vital Signs remote monitoring system through the Salesforce, and they're currently extending its launch through U.S. animal health distributors. The next bullet point is something I was going to talk about later as well. So they proceeded with an acquisition of structured monitoring products. So for those of you who've sort of been around for quite a bit, this was something, with the VetGuardian acquisition, they had built this into the agreement, and they always had the ability to exercise the option, right? So they've done that. And this is great because, once again, it adds another pillar to Zomedica, right? The more products they're able to sell, sort of the better they're going to do. And they're actually de-risking failure on one of the other pillars, right? So for us as investors in an early tech, or I wouldn't call it tech, pet healthcare tech startup, it's a good sign because there are many pillars. So if one doesn't do well, you got the other things holding that structure in place, okay? So going back here, this is fantastic. They paid a non-refundable deposit of $250,000 to exercise the option, and now they're doing the diligence and they're going to finalize that acquisition agreement. They begin manufacturing in Georgia the TrueView digital microscopy system. So that's going to have the automated slide prep that we've talked about before, and that's going to definitely improve vets' workflow in their practice. And also, it sort of deals with the issues that they have with unreadable images when slides are not prepared optimally, right? So obviously, they're going to say they're pleased with their progress, and we sort of talked about everything else in here. So that's pretty much it for Zomedica. Look, I'm not really going to go into the expenses. One thing I will say is if we look at the net loss was $6.4 million, and it was $3.9 million Q1 of last year. And then when we go over here, where is it? Net loss. Net loss was, what? It's not here. Somewhere here. I think the net loss was somewhat similar, but for some reason I can't find it here. Decrease in cash. Yeah, I can't find it here. Anyways, the net loss is somewhat similar to the last quarter. Anyway, so the increase in losses of $2.5 million is because, as I mentioned, they expanded their commercial activities, right? So obviously, if we see things happen and you see like the company putting in more work, trying to build out their sort of portfolio, obviously there's effort there. There's effort on their sales force. They got to pay salaries and everything else like that. So all of this being said, they haven't released any more outstanding shares, right? All that has sort of stayed flat. So going back here, the stock didn't really react, right? That was on May 11th. So May 11th was here. The stock came down a tiny bit, but like it didn't even break a penny, right? What's going to happen over the next little while is we have to look to the broader economic climate and see if the stock market is going to be positive or negative, right? Today, Zomedica is down, but most of the stocks in the tech sector are up, right? So if you're in Tesla, like I am, you're really happy with these Greek candles, right? You've seen Tesla ever since it hit this line, it bounced back on the 165 and it's jumped $20 or about like a little over 10%, right? For Zomedica, it's actually one of the few stocks that are down in my portfolio today. And that's fine. That's actually another reason why we diversify, right? If I only had everything in Zomedica, like I know some of you have, then I would be very unhappy today. But today my portfolio is very green because Tesla makes a significant component of it. Now, what does that mean going forward? Well, nothing really has changed for me in Zomedica. We're going to sit here and we're going to wait for external factors as well as the company to report some incredible results. If I see Zomedica drop below 19 cents, that's the signal for me to consider buying some more. And this is all swing shares, right? I hold 10,000 exact hold shares of Zomedica. Those shares won't be sold. But every other share that I buy, it's fair game. And I'm trying to keep the average cost as low as possible, right? We have not really broken below the 15-cent barrier. Like this is sort of where we've been since Zomedica hit the all-time high. And in my opinion, there's very little risk for me anyways of purchasing the shares over below this line, right? I'll buy below this line right here in this area, and I will sell in this area right here, right? I won't sell all of it in this area. I'm going to wait and sort of layer it out so that, I sell like maybe 30 to 40% of my swing shares here, another 30, 40% up here, and then I'll sell some more as we hit around 40 cents, right? This allows me to make the most profit possible. And in fact, that's all for those shares that I sell around 40 cents. That's going to be like double where I'm buying them at. Anyways, that's pretty much it for today's video. 20-ish minutes. Try to keep this simple live stream. Let me know if you sort of like the content. Consider hitting the like button, hitting subscribe button, maybe joining the membership. This is something that, I typically like to do as the information is coming out. Unfortunately, I was traveling, and hopefully next time I'll be able to do this live. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.